remembered as the world's greatest empire. And before Britain ruled the world, even its name was decided by invaders. Who were they? To keep this story simple, let's roll the clock all the way back from today through the centuries until we land at the very beginning. Right here, 1600. Britain's story might begin in 1600, but to understand it, we need to rewind a little further. For centuries, the island was shaped by outsiders. The Romans marched in 2,000 years ago, laying down roads, walls, and bathhouses, then left. Germanic tribes, the Angles and Saxons, settled in, leaving behind the name Angleland, or as we say today, England. Later came the Vikings, crashing in with raids and fire, and in 1066, William the Conqueror crossed from France, stamping England with a French crown while the common people stubbornly kept speaking English. All these invasions didn't just leave scars. They built something nobody expected: England. By the 1500s, England was still restless. King Henry VIII split from Rome after the Pope denied him a divorce, birthing the Church of England and sparking centuries of religious conflict. This bold move gave England a Protestant identity, but it also left the island short on friends. That weakness didn't go unnoticed. Catholic Spain, the superpower of the day, prepared to crush England once and for all. The showdown came in 1588 with the Spanish Armada. A tiny island faced Europe's greatest fleet and won. That victory didn't just save England, it gave it swagger. It set the stage for something bigger: the birth of Britain. After the Armada's defeat in 1588, everything shifted. England had stared down the most powerful empire in Europe and won. It gave the island swagger it had never had before. At the center of it all was Elizabeth I. She'd taken the throne back in 1558, guiding England through religious chaos, foreign threats, and a burst of culture that gave the world Shakespeare. But after 45 years on the throne, the Virgin Queen left no heir. When she passed, the crown went to her closest relative, James VI of Scotland. Overnight, he became James I of England, too. Suddenly, the man ruled both England and Scotland. They were still separate countries, but this union of the crowns planted a radical idea. What if the whole island became one? Meanwhile, England was eyeing the world. It planted its first lasting colony at Jamestown in 1607, hoping for gold but finding tobacco instead. Colonies meant money, and money meant power. But at home, trouble was brewing. Charles I succeeded James I in 1625, and the new king believed he ruled by divine right, chosen by God. Parliament disagreed. I think we all know where this is going. The argument exploded into the English Civil War. Cavaliers fought for the king, Roundheads fought for Parliament. Parliament won, and Charles was executed. England then became a republic under politician and soldier Oliver Cromwell, up until he died. Which is when everyone quietly decided kings weren't such a bad idea after all. So the monarchy was restored, this time with a new habit: drinking tea. Thanks, Catherine of Braganza. But kings still pushed their luck. James II took the crown in 1685 after his brother Charles II. James II was Catholic in a Protestant country. Parliament feared another civil war, so they invited his Protestant daughter, Mary, and her husband, William of Orange, for a bit of a chat.
William, Mary, how are you doing today?
Oh, we're absolutely famished. Does anyone have any tea? Tea, please.
Someone bring in some English breakfast or Earl Grey, please.
Earl Grey will do well, thank you.
Good. Well, the reason we've asked you here, we want you to invade.
Good heavens! Why would you want us to do that?
Well, James is becoming a bit of a problem. We think you'd be better suited to the throne.
I've never really liked my father. He prefers English breakfast.
Exactly! So, what do you think? Fancy a crown?
And with that, James fled. William and Mary took the throne, no bloodbath, just a glorious revolution. But even Scotland got caught in the chaos. When some Highland clans resisted pledging loyalty to William, 38 members of Clan MacDonald were massacred at Glencoe. This bloodshed sent a clear message: London was serious. Between you and me, there's gotta be a better way of showing everyone you're serious. Like, come on, man. Dramatic much. Anyway, by the 1700s, Scotland's economy was collapsing from failed colonies and bad harvests. Joining England suddenly looked profitable? In 1707, the Act of Union created the United Kingdom of Great Britain. This united the kingdoms of England, which already legally included Wales, and Scotland. Ireland remained a separate kingdom under the same monarch until 1801. So, a small island had just turned itself into a single state. The question now was, could it turn itself into an empire? The answer would change history forever. The new kingdom had a new mindset. If one island could unite, why not build something bigger? Trade routes thickened, warships multiplied, the Royal Navy became the island's seatbelt and slingshot all at once. Abroad, a private British company turned into a power. The East India Company didn't just trade, it ruled. In India, it won deals and battles that let it collect taxes in places like Bengal. Clerks became governors, forts became cities, treaties became taxes, profits came first, and when famine hit Bengal in 1770, millions suffered while revenue kept flowing. Across the Atlantic, the 13 colonies grew restless. Taxes without a say, protests turned to gunfire, Britain faced something new. Subjects who called themselves Americans? With French money and muskets on their side, the colonies broke away. Britain lost a continent, but kept its navy, its credit, and its nerve. The question was, where would that ambition turn next? The answer was south, to oceans Cook had mapped. In 1788, Britain planted a penal colony at Sydney Cove in the land down under. From prison ships came a new society. Wheat fields followed the chains, a far offshore became a future home. At home, ideas were changing even faster than borders. Steam engines shook mines and mills, iron and coal fed machines that made cloth by the mile. Railways stitched towns to ports and ports to the world. Industry wasn't just work now, it was a force of nature. One more experiment reshaped the island itself. In 1801, London fused with Dublin under a new name, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. Union produced scale, scale produced reach, but reach casts a long shadow. Britain now had the ships, the banks, and the factories. It could move faster and strike farther than all of its rivals. The only real choke left for the island empire was a single man in France. So what happened when unstoppable ambition met the one and only Napoleon? Well, Napoleon tried to strangle Britain at sea, but in 1805, Admiral Horatio Nelson met the combined French and Spanish fleets off Cape Trafalgar.
You may have a bigger fleet, but I have bigger masts.
Bigger masts? How dare you, insolent English scum!
What you gonna do about it? Ha ha ha!
Crush this Earl Grey drinker now!
These are my waters! You can't outmaneuver me!
With that, Nelson broke the French and Spanish lines and crushed them. Nelson died on deck, but the victory wrecked Napoleon's navy and any hope of invading Britain. With the channel safe, Britain outlasted him on land and watched Europe redraw itself again. The navy was now more than a shield, it was a world-spanning highway. Industry roared. Telegraph wires sprinted ahead of ships. A message could cross oceans in hours, not months. And a cheeky like and subscribe would mean world domination. No, but seriously, I'd love it if you could. Anyway, cotton came from India, wool from Australia, tea from China, manufactured goods out, raw materials in. A cycle that made London the banker of empires. And that empire grew in Africa and Asia as well. Treaties, protectorates, which were used under British control, and when those failed, wars. In South Africa, for example, Boer commandos ambushed with speed, then vanished, all while civilians suffered in grim camps as the British ground the resistance down. Expansion worked, but at a rising moral price. At home, the Industrial Revolution cut both ways. Cities boomed, but so did slums. Children worked long hours while reformers pushed back. Sewers, schools, and votes widened, but never fast enough for the people at the bottom. Britain's march of progress had a limp. And then, across the Irish Sea, disaster struck. First order of business, has anyone seen the potatoes? Not in the nets.
Not in the hills.
They were there at sunrise. Reports say a fungus is to blame.
Can we talk it out?
We tried. It doesn't negotiate.
Next item, finding anything that isn't a potato?
In 1845, potato blight, a fast-spreading plant disease, hit the crop. It returned in the following years, ruining harvest after harvest. Famine hollowed villages. Many sailed for America. Others stayed and buried the loved ones they'd lost. The Union survived on paper, but the wound never fully closed. Over in Asia, the East India Company's rule had bred resentment, to say the least. Sepoys, or Indian soldiers, served under British officers. Annexations and new rules cut into pay, custom, and pride. So, in 1857, a spark, rifle cartridges rumored to be greased with animal fat, set off an uprising across North India. The revolt failed, but forced London to take action by ending the experiment of the East India Company. With the company no longer in control, India passed to the crown. And Victoria took on a new title, Empress of India. I bet my bottom dollar that she had no idea what that even meant. By the late 1800s, Britain stood at its widest stretch. A quarter of the world's land, hundreds of millions of people, railways across continents, cables under seas, but rivals were catching up. Germany forged steel. The United States built giant factories. The balance began to tilt. And then, a gunshot in the Balkans. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand set the fuse for something bigger than any empire. The machines and methods Britain had perfected in peace were about to be used in war. But how does the world's largest empire survive the world's first industrial war? Following the assassination in 1914, the world caught fire. Britain marched in with pride. Red uniforms swapped for khaki, horse charges replaced by machine guns. Men signed up in droves, thinking it would be over by Christmas. But it wasn't. The trenches turned Europe into a graveyard. Mud, gas, barbed wire, millions died for yards of ground. Britain's empire poured men and supplies into the slaughter. Canadians, Indians, Australians, New Zealanders. When the guns finally fell silent in 1918, Britain stood on the winning side, but not untouched. A whole generation was gone. The empire had never stretched wider, but its spirit was cracked. Could it still hold together? The 1920s tried to rebuild, and the 1930s tried to forget. But across the channel, a storm was forming. Germany was rising again, faster, angrier, and better armed. Britain hesitated, hoping treaties could tame it. They couldn't. In 1939, Hitler invaded Poland. Britain declared war. Within a year, most of Europe had fallen, leaving Britain standing alone. The Blitz hammered its cities night after night, yet the island held on, helped by radar, codebreakers like Alan Turing, and sheer stubbornness. Then came a twist. Both the United States and the Soviet Union joined the fight. Slowly, the Allies clawed Europe back. D-Day, Normandy, Berlin. It all came to a climax in 1945. When the war ended, Nazi Germany was gone, along with the world Britain had ruled. Because while Britain had won the war, it had burned through its fortune to do it. The empire was broke, scattered, and surrounded by colonies that now wanted freedom. So how do you keep an empire when it doesn't want to be one anymore? Britain had survived the war, but peace brought a new kind of pressure. The empire was cracked, broke, and restless. India moved first. Years of protest and Gandhi's nonviolent marches made British rule impossible to defend. In 1947, India split into two nations, India and Pakistan, and the jewel of the empire was gone. One domino fell, and others followed. Africa, the Caribbean, the Middle East, one by one, colonies claimed independence. Britain didn't fight to keep them this time. It signed treaties, lowered flags, and watched its empire dissolve. But something unexpected rose from its ashes: the Commonwealth. Dozens of former colonies chose to stay linked, not by force, but by shared language, history, and trade. A new network grew where the empire had stood. At home, Britain was rebuilding too. Bombed cities were recrafted as concrete and glass. The National Health Service was born, promising free care from cradle to grave. Immigration from the former empire reshaped its streets and accents. London became a world city in more ways than one, but the island still shrank. In 1997, Britain handed Hong Kong back to China, the final colony. For the first time in centuries, the British Empire no longer existed. And yet, Britain endured. Smaller, different, still standing, but in a world now ruled by superpowers, what would Britain become without its empire? The empire was gone, but Britain wasn't. It had to reinvent itself, and it had to do it fast. Instead of ruling the world, it joined it. Britain became a founding voice in NATO, the United Nations, and the G7. It poured investment into finance, technology, and culture. London shifted from imperial capital to global crossroads, where bankers, artists, and street food stalls crowded the same postcodes. But the old fractures never fully healed. Scotland pushed for more autonomy, Wales gained its own parliament, Northern Ireland's peace was held together by a fragile agreement signed in 1998, the Good Friday Agreement, after decades of violent conflict known as the Troubles. For the first time in years, it felt like the UK might finally be pulling together. Then came a shock. In 2008, a global financial crash slammed Britain's economy. Austerity followed, deep spending cuts that reshaped public life. Frustration simmered. Politicians turned the focus outward, to the European Union. The question became, should Britain even stay in it? In 2016, voters said no. Brexit fractured the map again. England largely voted to leave, while Scotland and Northern Ireland voted to stay. After years of arguments and delays, Britain finally left the EU in 2020. The world watched, unsure if it was renewal or retreat. Today, the UK is smaller, louder, and more diverse than ever. Also, a bit scarier if I'm being honest. Wouldn't want to be caught waving your own flag now, would ya? Yikes! Centuries with global reach left it with deep ties and cultural weight. Music, media, science, sport, but also old ghosts that still spark debate. So what does it mean to be Great Britain? When the empire is long gone and the world no longer waits for your lead? The short answer, adaptation. Britain argues loudly, trades widely, and keeps reinventing. I should have just said that to begin with. Click here for the next video. Oh, wait, this is the first one? Oh yeah. Huh. Well, I guess you're just gonna have to subscribe.